Good morning, everyone. So I think it'd be a great, start. Just talk a little bit about yourself, Nigel.
Yep.
A little bit what you're currently working on and your background.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm an entrepreneur. I've been in the online gambling space for over 25 years. A good 10 to 15 years before it became legal in the U.S. Fortunately, I wasn't doing it in the U.S. But I've started some companies, one of which you might know if you know online betting, which is FanDuel, which is a huge company. We're going to talk about it. Got into the Solana space in 2021. Started a crypto casino and sportsbook called BetHog late last year. And so what I want to do today is talk about some of the things that we've been doing, I've done over my career in user acquisition, and more specifically what we've been doing in Web3 for user acquisition.
Awesome. And so I was one of the winners in Coliseum last year in the spring for Renaissance. We're building a programmatic incentives protocol, really focusing on how do you use your tokens as user acquisition fuel and really ability to grow out your product. And so I'd love to go back to 2009.
Mm-hmm.
You guys just started on FanDuel. You're building it out. What was it like to be in this rocket ship kind of experience? And how did you know that you were ready to get to the next stage?
Yeah, I'll just give you some stats about FanDuel. So, started in the summer of 2009. We actually started it in, I think it was June. We first launched it. And it's quite funny. We know in retrospect that June's a terrible time to launch because it's the middle of baseball season. It was a fantasy sports product and no one cares. So when we launched, I remember we would every day check our metrics, and our target was to acquire 2 new users a day. And my view was that if we acquired 2 new users, that would be a good day. What I can tell you is that most days were not good days. Most days we acquired not as many as 2, sometimes 1 and often 0. September of that year was the start of football season. We also made a major change to how the product worked, and things started to really perform after that. So that was kind of very early on. I'll take you sort of the midpoint, sort of 2015, so that was sort of 6 years after launch. We had grown in that period about 5x year on year for 6 years. So by 2015, we were doing about several hundred thousand monthly active users, and we did about 150 million in revenue. Fast forward to today, FanDuel has several million monthly users, and this year is on course to do about $7.5 billion in revenue this year. It's the #1 player in the US market. So this is a business that's grown like 5x or more year on year for about 15 years.
Wow. And so as you were in this aspect of growing, you said, some days you didn't have any user acquisition, some days you had 2. What were the metrics that you really started to target? Was there 2 or 3 that you always had on the dashboard that you were going after, or was it always try and experiment?
At the very, very start, pre-product market fit, it's just like acquiring a user is like an amazing experience. We have a user. And so that's, at the very, very early, that's what it is. And there you're doing anything. You're cold DMing people, you're cold emailing. I remember emailing bloggers who wrote about fantasy and said, hey, come and check it out. And a response rate was minuscule, right? So that's at the very, very start. What you're really trying to seek to do is to get a couple of users to get feedback, to kind of and then they'd say, well, your product sucks. They'll say that a lot. And then you're like, well, why does it suck? And then they're like, well, and you're trying to find the signal. So that's what we were trying to do early on. And actually, very early on, we had a user who told me it sucked, and I was about to get in an argument and then realized that this guy was an expert. And he told me exactly why it sucked and exactly how we should change it. And that one user, if it wasn't for him, I don't know if we'd have been successful. We dramatically changed that product. Once you're starting to acquire users, then you're moving to how do I have repeatable acquisition channels. So then you're moving away from just DMing people coldly and more how do I spend money to acquire a certain user at a certain value and then getting payback on that.
So it really is that age-old trope of do things that don't scale and
right.
Continue to keep throwing things against the wall until you see that
100%. Yeah, do things that don't scale, cold DMing people to just get, because it's not about getting the users, but getting that feedback, getting that person who will just objectively tell you your product sucks and why it sucks. You really need that, because only then can you make it better.
So let's walk into a little bit around when you get to these growth metrics, right? You now are starting to see these users come back, the retention's coming in. So many crypto companies, they launch products, they get a lot of excitement, and then things just kind of die down. What were some of the ways that you were able to continue that growth, throw fuel in the fire, so to speak? Yeah,
so very early on, I remember we had 3 acquisition channels. Our product team was very excited about viral acquisition. Like this is back to 2009, 2010, 2011. Viral acquisition was very in the rage. Zynga was like a super hot company. So the product team were like, we're going to do viral. And then I was like, no, I'm going to do business development. We're going to do business development. And then one of my co-founders, who's our CMO, she's like, have we tried advertising? And I was like, yeah, no one does
No one does advertising.
No one does advertising. And, viral never worked. It completely never worked. And typically paid products do not grow virally. We learned that the hard way. Business development was a disaster. Like, here's tiny little startup of 5 people going to like CBS and say, hey, let's partner on a revenue share deal. Like it just never happens, right? It's very, very, very hard. And amazingly, advertising worked, right? And so, but what we did is we built, we didn't go and let's do a Super Bowl ad. What we did was, let's be very, very targeted in who we're targeting and measure their performance all the way through the acquisition funnel. And that's how that business grew from trying to get 1-2 users a day to getting, to doing $7.5 billion. It's exactly the same today. Like they track, if I spend X, how many users do I get? What's the CAC? And then, so CAC is what's our customer acquisition cost, and then what's our payback on that? Because not all users are created the same. So some users, you might be saying, we're getting an amazing number of users, the CAC is super low, but they churn on the second day, and you never get payback. So those are the metrics. CAC and payback are like the 2 bedrocks.
And you guys are extremely sophisticated. You're tracking every single movement users were making, right?
Yeah, you want to, once you're starting spending serious money, you want to be seeing what happens, what's the cost of getting them to even click on the ad, then what's the cost, what's the conversion from click to reg, from reg to deposit, all the way through that funnel. The one thing I would say is if you're not acquiring thousands and thousands of users, you can't really do those A/B tests. You're just you just want to look at the funnel and look at things that are obviously wrong. But it's only once you start to get to scale can you really do tests on those. And we were doing those every day testing and really tracking everything.
You start thinking a little bit like programmatic incentives or some kind of distribution strategy.
Right. Yeah. And incentivization is a good way to twist onto crypto, because the question is, what's the difference between Web3 and Web 2, right? And actually, fundamentally, not a lot, right? You're still building you're still building a product for consumers, right? And if you skip that product market fit stage, you can maybe incentivize a lot of engagement, but as soon as the incentivization goes away, they will be gone. And crypto is a graveyard for companies that have launched without PMF, that have driven incentivization, and then the users have gone. So when I think about crypto, I think, okay, it's a sim. We have to build a product that people love. And only then, and only when I know we have product market fit, then we think about incentivization. Because incentivization and say drop-in tokens is definitely something that crypto uniquely had. We just couldn't do that in Web 2, but we can do this here, but we can only do it whenever we have product market fit.
So let's talk a little about what you're working on right now, right? You're kind of thinking, you're building out BetHog.
Yeah.
What's the 10x opportunity with crypto that you saw that didn't exist with FanDuel?
Yeah, so BetHog is a crypto casino. We take Solana, we take Ethereum, we take Bitcoin, we take USDT. We carry the same games that our competitors carry. We build some of our own unique games. We have about 2,000 competitors, right? When we launched, we were like, oh, hey, here's the 2,000th crypto casino. Crypto casinos have been around pretty much since crypto. It's the first crypto application. And so in a lot of ways, it's totally unexciting. And so we had to spend a lot of time and saying, well, what's going to be unique about us? Are we going to build unique games? Are we going to do this? And what we started to head on is, of those 2,000 casinos, do you know how many have got their founders on the site and you can go and find out?
No, how many?
I think it's one, and that's us.
Wow.
Now, there's a couple of others. I know who the founders are. It's kind of public. And so Stake, Eddie, he streams every week. Eventually they launched anonymously, but it became public. Shuffle, I know who the founders are, and it's public. But generally all of these guys are like all anonymous. And we were like, if I was going to deposit tens of thousands of dollars somewhere, I kind of want to know who they were. And so we decided that the big thing we were going to do was trust. Right, we're gonna you can see it's us. Like we link to my Twitter account. You can DM me. You know it's real. And so we were like, maybe that's a differentiator, and we found that is. Like suddenly, amazingly, when people know us behind a company, they're going to trust them more. And so we've really focused on trust. And then we've really built that. Another thing that we've really focused on is investing a lot in the product. Like. It's amazing some of our competitors think, it's all going to be about marketing. And we're like, no, it's all going to be about product. Like we're not really scaling our marketing because we want the product, we want trust, and we want the product to be so much better before we start to go like crazy on marketing.
So when a user comes into BetHog and it's a new user, what's kind of the fuel that you use to lure them in? Like, do you do any kind of, first time experience?
Yeah. So things like deposit bonuses is like core to the betting industry. Like it's just like a mantra. Like what's my deposit bonus? So we use that, and that's really big. We also have got the attraction that we are going to do an airdrop, and so we're very clear. The more you play, the more airdrop you're going to get.
Little alpha there, right?
Yeah, the Hog token is coming. But we're very clear that that's not immediately tomorrow, and we're not ready to do it right now because we don't fully feel like while the product's working, we're bringing users in, users are loving the product, we're not ready for a token.
Yeah.
And we're not like really pushing it because we don't think we should be doing it until we already have cracked it. I think of token as rocket fuel, but you don't add rocket fuel to like something you've built in your backyard that's like falling apart. You only add it when the rocket's really ready to go.
And I think it's the problem we have today is just everyone goes immediately to the token.
Yeah.
And now your biggest event that you could possibly have in your entire existence as a company has been spent.
It's so tempting. It's like, let's hit the rocket fuel. But no, you got it. We're going to probably be like many months, if not a year, making sure it's ready for the rocket fuel.
Yeah, and I think the other part is like after the token, what do you do with that, right?
Yeah, so after the token is like, that's the start line.
Right.
Then it's like making sure that you're using the token properly. It's in gaming especially, you see so many perverse incentives. So like you're going to get what you incentivize. And so we are very careful that when we're incentivizing somebody to do something, that's value accretive to us and to the token. So that's something that we're very careful about.
Awesome. No, it was great chatting, Nigel. Anything last thing you want to say?
No, come check out BetHog. We're open 24/7. We got some great games. And if you've got feedback on it, I'm Nigel Eccles on Twitter. I love getting feedback on the product, especially if it sucks. Please come on, tell me it sucks. We want it to be better.
Awesome. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.